Hello everybody, I'm Nora Burrows. I have a lot going on in quilt life right now. We're going to talk about it in this video. First, I want to talk about a quilt sew-along that I am abandoning. And I feel a little guilty about this because it is a quilt-along that I was doing with you all, and I had a series of videos on it. It is the Socialites Quilt-along by the Fat Quarter Shop. I did 3 blocks, each one a video I had for each one of those blocks. I'll link to them below if you're interested. But basically I took the block that they had provided the free pattern for. It's a free sew along, and I had tried to change it and make it my own, and I hated every single one of my blocks. And it's not that I hated the blocks that the Fat Quarter Shop had put out. I just did not like how mine personally came out. I didn't like the color combinations. I didn't like really very much about them. And it was becoming not something I was looking forward to. In the beginning, I would wake up in the morning, I'd be like, yes, I get to do the Socialites block today. And then it was like, not making me happy at all. And then I was like, why am I doing this? You know, quilts are supposed to bring us joy. And I thought about how I'd feel about abandoning a project because, you know, it does feel a little bit like quitting, but I don't need to say a whole bunch about this. Long story short, I'm gonna take those 3 blocks, I'm gonna put them in my orphan blocks, and I'm super excited because my orphan block bin, and I do think that some people don't call them orphan blocks, they call them like, I know Pat Sloan calls them something project pieces or something like that. I can't remember, but anyway, you get the idea. That bin of mine is growing, and I cannot wait to make a quilt with a lot of those pieces. So that's going to be an upcoming video. So the Socialites blocks, the 3 Socialites blocks I did, I'm going to put into that bin and will be used for another time. But Socialites, not doing any more of those videos. I think I've discovered that I really don't care for the quilt-alongs. I would rather just make my own quilt patterns as I go. That's what I really like doing. Which, speaking of, I just released a video on making this Tula pink quilt. I'll show it to you real quick. Here it is, and then link will be below. Here's a quick, oh, it's upside down. Here, I'll give you a better view. This is like it folded in half. Now let's see if I can open it up a bit. You can go and actually take a look at this video. I show the whole thing. I tell you all the measurements. I tell you how to make it. You can watch me struggle with some parts of it, but I like that quilt. Okay, project I'm incredibly excited for coming up. It's gonna come out Monday, January 16th. It is presented by Textile Artists, is that what it's called? Textile Artists, yes. And it is a free stitch along. It is called Stitch Camp. And it's a 5-day stitch camp. They release a video every single day. So if you go to their website, I will try and link this website below, but I got to it through Instagram. Basically, I was following them on Instagram, and then they had links in their little bio thing, and I got to it that way. But I'm sure if you Google it, you can find it. Textile Artists Stitch Club. Anyway, so Monday, January 16th, 1 week, every day, they're releasing a video, and it looks really great. Now, it's not geared toward quilt makers. It really is more like fiber artists, but I don't even want to say fiber artists. It's more just like art. Art with like thread and all kinds of, you know, tactile materials, but it looks great, and I think that I can, whatever blocks I make or whatever I make with it, I can incorporate ideally into a quilt. So I'm excited about that, and maybe I'll even take you along that process. I haven't fully thought that through, but it would be kind of fun, you know, as I'm creating this bits to video some of that. So look for that. The other project that I'm doing that I'm really excited about, do you remember these tree blocks? I did not make this tree block. Another member of my guild made this tree block, but I have a video tutorial on how to make these tree blocks, and I was obsessed. I couldn't stop making them. And it was part of this program that the Quilt Guild was doing, where you basically made a bunch of these tree blocks, and then at the holiday party, you brought your tree blocks, and you had a chance to win a bundle of tree blocks. Basically, like if you made 4 tree blocks, you put your name into the bucket 4 times, and then you had 4 chances to win, and they had split everybody's blocks into like piles of 10, if that makes sense. Anyway, so my friend Rebecca desperately wanted to win a bundle, and I, of course, desperately wanted to win a bundle, so we were really rooting for each other. And I had made 5 quilt blocks, and she had made 8 quilt blocks, so we had that many chances to win. And I ended up with a bundle, but she did not. But one of the other guild members didn't really want their bundle so much, so they gave it to Rebecca, so she was really thankful for that. So anyway, then we decided to do this whole layout. Her and I, we were like, okay, let's make our quilts kind of together just for fun, and she had come out with this layout of kind of a tree, so it's like going to be a tree made out of trees. It's very cool. But to do that, we had to exchange another 5 quilt blocks with each other because we didn't have enough. 10 was not enough to do this design. So, I've made a whole lot of quilt blocks. I've made more to give her. She's gonna give more to give me. I'm gonna show you the quilt blocks that I have. These were made by all different members of the guild, and a couple of them are mine because, you know, when they split them all up, sometimes you get a couple of years back. But let me show you those. So most of these are green trees on a cream background, and I had a little bit more fun with mine. Mine are a little bit like more wild and crazy, which I don't know how those guild members are going to feel about those when they have a whole set of green trees and then my wacky ones. But I think Rebecca did some pretty cool ones too. I don't know if I got any of hers in my bundle, but here's the first one. This is a little bit more Christmas-like, and I do love how they are all just so different. This one is very, very tree-like, very, very literal. And I think that fabric is really cool. This one, it's funny because I did not make this one, but this person made theirs very similar to mine. So for mine, I always did every other strip the same. So two fabrics. Like this is one that I made. This is one I'm giving to Rebecca. So you can see 2 and 2. So this person had the same idea and did the same thing. This one is very Christmassy. Adjust this so you can see better. Again, I got a lot of Christmassy ones. I didn't realize how many Christmas ones I got. I feel like other people got more just general neutral green trees. That one is also very tree-like. So it'll be interesting to see how to arrange these within the quilt. This one has kind of a sky-like background fabric. This one is also Christmas themed. I also have this fabric, by the way. I did not make this tree, but I do have this fabric. This one I love. That is super cool. This one might be my favorite. Look at that trunk. So cool. And I love the mixture of the batiks and the regular quilting cotton fabric. I made this one. This one I got back. Actually wasn't crazy about this one, but you know, they can't all be winners. And then I made this one, which is fun. And I didn't do my typical, you know, 2 and 2. This one I made it all the same. It's out of this. I think this is Kaif. This is Kaif feathers, Kaif Basset feathers fabric. So then let me show you the couple that I made Rebecca. I'll show you 3 that I made her. So I made this one that I already showed you, which I think is awesome. I made this one that is out of, who is this fabric? Starts with a T. Tilda someone. I can't remember. And then the third one is this one here, which I think is also very successful. That was a little thready. I think it just looks like, you know, like so many birds flying around in the background. Really fun. So I'm exchanging the 5 additional blocks with Rebecca tonight. So I'll show you the ones that I get from her in a future video when I get those back. 2 books for a book review today. First one is Old Patchwork. This was the this is the cover. It was dying, so I just removed it and I'll probably throw it away. This is by Ruth E. Finley, Old Patchwork Quilts. And this, I think, is kind of a, you know, historically relevant, not only because of the information in it, but also just because of the nature of the fact that Ruth Finley wrote it in, I think it was like 1925, early or mid 1920s. And it really was one of the first quilt books. I mean, it not only lists all of these blocks, I mean, every block that practically existed at the time, which is a little bit of an exaggeration because since quilts were being made, there have been, you know, thousands of quilt blocks. But the ones that were really prominent and important during the 1920s and before, she lists here not how to make them, but about the block itself and kind of its relevance, in addition to a lot of quilt stories, stories about women, quilt makers, anecdotes that are funny, things like that. And I loved it. And I didn't love it. So I love this book because she wrote it and she did a great job reading it, and it's historically really important. It's historically a very important book. It is a little dry. It made me sleepy quite frequently, but I highly recommend it. Read it before you go to bed and it'll knock you right out. Second book is, I don't know if that's exactly a good book for you to say that it'll knock you out, but I do think that when you're done with the book, you'll be super glad you read it. You will have, soaked in a lot of these like stories that she talked about, and then she talks about how to make quilts, and it's different back then, right? How they made quilts in the 1920s is different than how they make quilts now. There was no rotary cutters, there was no rulers. Templates were more crucial than they necessarily are today, though obviously templates are super highly used. But you get the idea. You won't be disappointed. This is the other one that I think you will not be disappointed in. This is the other quilt book. This is Fabric of a Nation. So this was a museum exhibit that the Boston, what museum is it? The museum in Boston. The Museum of Fine Arts in Boston had an exhibit of historically important quilts within their collection, as well as quilts that they borrowed for the exhibit. And I think that exhibit toured. Now that exhibit took place, unfortunately, I think it was 2020. It was like right at the height of the pandemic. And so I wasn't able to go, and I know a lot of people who typically would have gone were not able to because of COVID. So unfortunately the exhibit ended, and I do think it might be touring now. So if you look it up, maybe it's somewhere else. But I don't know if it's the exhibit in full. It might just be a selection of those quilts. Anyway, this whole book is, and I will say that even though this is called Fabric of a Nation, American Quilt Stories, they're not all quilts. Like some of them are woven objects, some of them are other blankety kind of things that are not necessarily quilts, which was disappointing because I kind of skipped over those. I just wasn't interested in them. But you can really flip to any one of these. And what's great about it is every single one of these quilts is incredibly historically important and frequently made by a well-known prominent quilt maker. Many of them also, we don't know who the quilt makers were, but the point is that it comes with a whole description about the quilt, which is frequently lacking for me in quilt history books, just generally speaking, like let me pull out a book and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So this book, Unconventional and Unexpected, I'm not bashing this book. I haven't really flipped through it yet, so I can't give a full review. But the point is, with this book, there's a whole lot of pictures. So and of course I flipped to the one with text, but there's a whole lot of pictures, but you see, like the pictures, you're looking at the quilts where it might say what they know about the quilt in terms of like the date and who made it and the size of the quilt, but the text is usually like at the beginning of the chapter or the end of the chapter, generally talking about like either quilts at that time or categorizing quilts in some way. This book is different because every single quilt, look at that awesome quilt, has a description not about what was going on at the time, perhaps about that too, but specifically about the quilt and why it is relevant to quilt makers today and historically speaking. So this was great. I loved getting just soaked up information about every single quilt, and every one of those quilts was just, it's even if you don't like it aesthetically, you can appreciate it for some specific reason. I mean, it's part of the collection for a reason. Other thing about books, so those are the two book reviews, but I wanted to let you all know that Martingale Publishing, I'm sure you've heard, has gone out of business. If you don't know Martingale, they're one of the most, if not the most prominent quilt book publishers, like right now, I think, maybe in the world. But they are going out of business, like they're closing up shop. So I have all kinds of questions about where are quilt books going to be coming from now, but I wanted to let you know about it because on their website, at least as of a couple days ago, everything is 50% off or more. So I went and got a bunch of books. I haven't looked today to see if it's still 50%, but I'm sure it is. And then a lot of the books that they're sold out of, you can buy the digital copy for like super cheap as well. So go check out their website. I'll try and link to that below as well. What else? Those two books that I just reviewed are not on the Martingale website. They weren't published by Martingale. Martingale does more like pattern books. I don't think that they do a whole lot of quilt history books, but they do have some great stuff. I would check it out. I also wanted to let you know that I did a series of videos unboxing the Missouri Star Quilt Company Advent box, which were a lot of fun. I let you know how I thought about that Advent box. I think that they do their like initial release of those boxes in April, so you can take a look for that if the box looked like something that you'd be interested in. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do it again. I liked a lot of the stuff. I didn't like a lot of the stuff. I won't go into that. You can go and take a look at those videos if you're interested on my opinion. But generally speaking, it was fun. I mean, it was super fun, and I did get things that I wouldn't normally have purchased myself, but I really enjoyed. But there was a lot of also like stuff that just ends up not being used and taking up space. So I don't know. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.